And welcome back to the channel where we are making a video game from scratch using Love2d and Lua. Today I think we're going to work on some stenciling for our cabin here. So if we walk inside this cabin here, we go above it. So we need that doorway of the cabin to be rendering on top of us, which has a couple issues, right? Where it's kind of tough because right now the tiles that we're looking at exist in the map and the player exists in the scene. So the way it's kind of stacked, there's all these tile IDs for the map. They get rendered first. And then in our scene is what holds the current map as well as the next map if we're transitioning. And the player exists in the scene outside of the map. So we're going to have to figure out how we're going to draw something over the player, on top of the player. And then we also need to figure out, and you know what, this it looks like my diagonal movement is a little jittery. I wonder if we changed something in that yesterday, because I don't remember that looking like that. But we have to figure out some way to potentially render a whole data table outside of the first one. So like if we export our tile map here, like we draw whatever we want in our global tile map, right? Then it exports into an object like this, a .lua file that holds a data table, and it holds all the values of all the tile IDs for the whole global map. There is a way, and let's see, look at the bottom of this data table. It's a 1021, which happens to be the very last dirt. So that's a 1021 tile ID. And it kind of goes like this, where the data table is it starts counting here and goes all the way to the right, and then one more row and then all the way to the right. So we had to write a little data downloader to go piece together that data table and put the values in the correct spots. So the first 20 values don't all go in the first scene. It goes row by row by row by row by row, and then by next map row by row by row by row. So we're going to test exporting a different layer from this tiled map and seeing how they structure a layered approach, because what we're hoping to do is to be able to tell our game, hey, this is a doorway, so this should be rendering above our player, or this is a cave entrance, so that should be rendering above our player. So the idea is we might altogether stop drawing this door on this map level sprite render, but we might be doing a different layer with anything that needs to be rendered after the player's rendered. So we might have to figure out, I know there's a way to kind of, oh, and you know what, that's our wrong door. This is the one we're looking at. Yeah. So we've got our village down here. So let's see what it looks like if we export a different layer, like a whole new layer on here. And we'll see what that might look like. I'm still learning this software, but it looks like we need this layers. That would be nice. And then we need tile sets, which would be nice. And then we need, actually, I think that's about it. So if this is layer 1, we can rename this. How do we rename? We can say that this is the map level map tiles. Okay. And then, so for example, we might make this transparent. There's a one transparent thing here, I'm going to render that where the door is for now. And I'm going to export as a global map, and that'll replace our current map in our game. So we export it as a global map, our data downloader goes in there and pulls it out. So it is transparent now, which means I'm actually kind of confused. Oh, okay. It makes sense that it is a collidable map object because the tile ID is where the collidable map objects live. But if we just take it out of the global map, it looks like it renders it transparent. So that's a good first step, because we have to piece together how exactly yeah, you know what? We would probably change this background color to be black instead of this gray. And then we can render our player as is. We won't have a collidable map tile ID where that door is so that we can actually walk into it. So that'll be the first step, is like, hey, let's just grab a clear tile from there and export that. Now we should be able to walk inside the door. Okay, we can walk in the door, but now, the next step is to not just render the door tile over the player. That would be pretty easy, but what we're trying to do is have it so that any time we draw a door layer in our tiled app, we put it on a separate layer, and then we export it, and then our game knows, hey, once this is exported, this sprite, all the sprites on this second layer are going to render above our player. So if we have a doorway or a cave entrance, that it would appear like we're walking under or inside the door there. So I think the first step is to see what kind of tile ID. Well, actually, we know what tile ID this would be. If we run our script, well, okay, so we can pull up an image I made of the tile ID for the sprites. So up in here, we've got this tiles numbered. Oh, it looks like I already had it open. So if we want to see the tile ID for this clear one we just put there, it looks like it is 75. So a tile ID 75 is being inserted right here. And then it treats it as it's completely transparent, because in our game, we have a background color set to be this gray color. So we would probably just change that to black so that the default. Hey, Squatch, thank you. Yeah, we hit 100 followers today on Twitch, and it happened off stream. But yeah, I was in another game dev stream, and there was one person who tipped the person I was watching, Falinair, over to 1,700 followers. He was the 1,700th follower of his channel, and then he also was like, oh, by the way, Finding Focus, I'm your proud 100th follower as well. So he was he was like snagging up all those cool numbers to help channels out. So like that was cool. Yeah, he was super nice. So yeah, it was another game dev stream. So it was another person interested in this kind of stuff anyway. So wow, why did that? Did I accidentally delete the path right there? I must have. So yeah, I'm hoping today we can figure out what, like, the trickiest part is going to be how tiled exports a second layer, and then having to make a second data downloader to go and then put another mass object of every single scene and all of the top level tiles. It's like, I don't know what to call those. Like, top level tiles is like my only idea, because it's like, it's going to be the last rendered tile on top of the player. Yeah, I ended up deleting this on accident. So yesterday, after all the stream issues, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to run a test stream and see if I can notice anything. So I doubled the bit rate, and then I ran a test stream, and it was a 0 dropped frames for 3 hours straight. So I don't know. I don't know why yesterday was such a hassle. But now I've got Open Hardware Monitor open just in case my CPU starts overheating or something, and then I can see if that's the issue. But I did a 3-hour stream last night after everything went to crap, and then it was holding fine. So I don't know what was going on. My only guess is like around this time of day, people getting home from work and like watching Netflix or something and like bogging down the ISP. I don't know. Because it only seems to happen right around 7:30 or so. Like, yeah, we're sitting at a cool 40 right now, so we should be fine. I mean, I do notice it creeps up sometimes. That was crashing the stream earlier, like a couple weeks ago, but it seems to be okay now. I don't know if the water cooler is just iffy. I mean, dude, the water cooler is a decade old, so I think my build is coming up on 11 or 12 years old. So the fact the water cooler lasted this long is pretty amazing. Okay, I think I want to try to do this next. Actually, no, yeah, we kind of do. So like when I'm thinking about it, we have to. I was gonna say, why don't we just have a kind of like we have a whole layer of collidable map objects? We're like, oh, it's a tile ID of a certain value. That means it's a collidable map object, and you can't walk through it. But the issue with trying to do something like that with the stenciling is that it still just resides only in the map. So it's like maybe once the map is made, maybe we could, yeah, maybe once the map is made, we have a list of any top level tiles, right? And we can say, in the scene, after we render our player, we can say, hey, by the way, loop through all the tiles in the current scene, and if any of those tiles are in the top level tile ID range, then go ahead and just render them right now on top of the player. And then that way we wouldn't have to do a second data downloader, because there aren't going to be that many tiles that have this property. But that would mean every frame we cycle through and ask if every frame is a top level tile and then render it. So we could pull it out into a function where we say, you know, upon every map load, upon every scene init, we go loop through all the tile IDs, and if the tile ID is a top level tile value, then go ahead and insert that row and column and tile ID into a list. Can you use layers like Photoshop and assign tiles to a specific layer? So yeah, I can do this tiled app will spit out all 9,000 tiles for the whole global map or whatever, and it does allow the ability to export a different layer. But the problem with that is if I do another layer, like let's do it right now and show you. If we duplicate this layer and actually I don't want to do that. I just want to do a new layer, a new empty layer. So we do a new layer, we call this top level tiles. And then I can turn off this old layer. Well, first of all, I want to put the 75 tile ID as a test right there. and then I'm going to turn off this. Well, actually, if I export, I'll export this as a global map 2 layer, and then I'll show you what happens here. We'll have a, if I go into, actually I was just there, global map 2 layers, we get this data table of all the tile IDs, all 9,000 of them. And then if you look at the bottom here, then there's another layer, and it's got more data. And it's all the 9,000 tile IDs again, and then there should be a 175 in here somewhere, right there. That's the 75 we put in there. So that's like, if we go the route of layers and tiled, then we have all this junk data basically that I don't think we want to really deal with, because these tiles are pretty unique. Like, it's only going to be on entrances for caves and buildings and stuff, so it's not going to be too many of them. That's why I'm kind of leaning towards, at this point, doing something similar, where right now we're doing something similar compared to our collidable map objects. So like any tile ID that exists in the rows of these 5 right now are something we can't walk through, because I set it, if its tile ID is in between these certain values, then go ahead and make it a collidable map object. So if we take a look at how we did that, or what we did there, like this. In our map is holding an array of collidable map objects, and we insert a collidable map object of that very index. So like, we cycle through the map width and height, which I think map width and map height is referring to not the global map. This is a little confusing, but I think if we go to see what this is, yeah, 10 and 8. So I say this is confusing because our map is what is holding all the scenes. So every panel is what I'm calling one scene, but every scene has a reference to the current map and the next map if we're transitioning. So I say it was a little confusing because map width doesn't mean the width of how many scenes there are in the map, but it's the width of how many tiles fit in one scene. So it probably should be called scene width. But I think if we do something exactly like this, where we give ourselves in our map, we say, hey, we've got a table of these collidable map objects. We get an empty table of this collidable map objects. If you're not trying to stay under a certain file size, that top layer might not be a bad idea. Yeah, we're not necessarily trying to. It's just more from a taste perspective, I guess. That it's like, I think it's kind of gross to be exporting all that data when we could do something. We could do. Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to taste. We really could do it like that. And then we would have, if we do it that route, we would have to do something similar, that how we're parsing out the layer of data, right? We're parsing out that whole first 9,000 and assigning that tile IDs into our scenes. And then we'd have to go parse through that second layer and get, yeah, we really could do a collision layer like that too. We really could. I think from my standpoint, it's kind of like, if I'm painting, I'd kind of rather just be able to paint all on the same layer, and then I export it once, and based on the tile IDs, it knows how to assign it. So then I don't have to worry about, oh, I was just drawing on the whole layer this whole time. I was drawing on the wrong layer this whole time, and now my map layer doesn't even have anything, and it thinks everything's a collidable map object. So it's purely a taste thing, I think. And I could, you're totally right though. We could do collision layer, and we probably, yeah, I'm thinking if we because we are trying to streamline the animation insertions too. I would like to be able to insert the whole animation object based on a tile ID also. So like if we paint the first tile of an animated tile set, hopefully it would go and render each one. Right now we're kind of manually inserting the animation objects where the tile IDs go, but we do need to figure that out. We don't have to, but it makes the development process faster. So yeah, I'm trying to think, because yeah, if we do have an animation layer as well, then we could do something similar. Dude, yeah, we could do that. We could do an animation layer, a collidable map object layer, and a what am I thinking? Top level tile layer. We could do that. I'm trying to think from like what would be the most efficient long-term streamlining the game wise approach. And I'm trying to imagine if the different tiles, if I would think that the different layers in tiled would get annoying. Cause the pro with that is we don't have to keep our collidable tile IDs all in a given row, and we don't have to keep all of our given top level tiles in a given row based on tile ID. We would just draw it, and then we can make any tile collidable if we want to. So you are kind of winning me over on that. I think that might be the way to do it. Yeah, because right now we're defining the collidable map objects based on the tile ID. But if we go this other route, yeah, if we walk it through and imagine what it would look like, if we go to our map declarations, we can see how we're getting our values right now. So we get, can you do collisions based on tiles on a layer? Yeah, so like, yeah, that's what I'm that's what I'm gonna try to entertain right now and see how it might work here. So like, we've got this global map is the .lua that tiled exports. Now the layers 1.data, that's the first layer tile IDs. So any tile that's not transparent is a collider. Yeah, it's just that we don't want that, because we want to be able to walk on grass and we want to be able to walk on pavement. But if it's a fence post or a tree or a stump, we would want to collide it. So yeah, we would have potentially a ground floor level layer in tiled. We'd have a floor, and then we'd have a collidable map object layer, and then we can have the top level layer for anything that needs to be rendered above the player. And we would go and get those values like this. So the first layer .data, this would be that ground level, that first 9,000 tiles that we get from here. So not this one, but this. So this layer, well, let me see, because yeah, we're getting the layer. This is a table of layers in our global map, and it looks like the first layer is in this first table, and then at the end of this first layer, that comma there is the second layer. So if we would go and also pull in all the data for each layer, we can have this first layer be the ground level, where we just render it in the scene. We can have the second layer where we render it in the scene, but it's treated as if it's a collidable map object, which is just like how we're doing it now. It's just not based on tile ID, but based on this layer data. And then I guess there's I'm curious what happens if we try to draw a tile ID of 0 anywhere. Because a lot of these zeros are because there's no one index to draw. But I'm kind of curious if we try to just draw a tile ID of 0, what would happen? Because there's no zeros in the global map currently. I mean, I guess we could. Yeah, let me see what happens if we take our tiled map and I'm just gonna take the floor tiles. Oh my, that's what I want to do, I think, but over here. So I'm kind of curious if I just delete the first 3 here, if deleting them exports a tile ID of 0 here. So like if we were to go export as this global map 3, and then we go and see what that exported as the first values. Did we not export it here? Yeah, Tashio graphics, okay. Global map 3. It looks like it's a 140. Why is it a 140 when we delete it? Yeah, it should be. Yeah, what tile ID even is 140? Am I selected on one? I kind of want to say like, hey, this is no tile. Like, what happens if we don't draw anything here? Is that what a 0 is as far as tiled is concerned? And then we'll have to see what drawing a 0 does in the game, if it'll even allow us to draw a tile ID of 0. What up, K-Tronics? How's it going, dude? Hey, we're up. We've got no dropped frames, so I'm sure I didn't just jinx it either. Yeah, the top level tiles is almost no data, right? Yeah, it was zeros. So if we don't do anything, setting up a new pool. Okay, cool, dude. That should be good. It's been super hot where I live, so that sounds really awesome. It's an above ground. Yeah, like you didn't follow one of those YouTube videos where they like dig it in a forest, right? Have you seen those where they like sculpt out a pool in the middle of the forest? Okay. Let's see what happens if we try to draw a tile ID of 0. So what we can do is say that in our map downloader here, instead of a tile ID of a tile ID, we give it a tile ID of 0. And let's see. Yeah, it doesn't like that. I wonder if because if we export a layer, like let's say our top level tile layers are going to be few and far between, right? Like there's only going to be a couple of doorway tile IDs that we insert. That's not what I wanted. So that means the table is mostly zeros. And then when we go to insert, yeah, I mean, I guess we could. I guess instead of just assigning. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think this through. We have to give a non-zero number in this tiled map assignment. Otherwise we crash because it has to know which index to draw from our master sheet, sprite sheet, and it's 1 indexed. So if we give it anything less than 1, it'll crash. But we could I'm wondering if we could just say, hey, that 75 tile is like a reserved transparent tile, or maybe we make in our sprite sheet number 1 to be a reserved transparency tile, and I'm just gonna say like, hey, tile ID is just gonna get reassigned here to that transparent tile that was 75 when we just tried it, and now let's try to draw the tile IDs. So it looks like, so this is actually correct. This looks very wrong. I did end up rendering sand as the first layer just so that we had a proper tile ID, and then the insert animatables are being inserted once the scene finishes transitioning. So it does look like what we're doing is we're giving our initial map. I guess I don't really know why the I guess I don't know why the 75, and there's our walking bug, why the 75 isn't taking precedence over the sand ID, unless we mess that up. Let's see where we're assigning that sand. Really? Where are we assigning that sand? Let me see if we change this number for a tile ID insertion. Yeah, we still get the sand. Okay. So yeah. It looks like the tile ID I gave it was wrong. So let's see. Oh, and you know what? That was in our global map too, not our global map. So we have to find what tile ID is a reserved transparent one from our global map export, which, you know what? I thought if we just go as a test 3, 6, 9, 12, so if we just say like tile 20 or something, that should be a transparent tile. But then again, dude, what the? We put a tile ID of 1, did we not? And we got the post sprite. Yeah, tile ID of 1, and then if we do a tile ID of 2, what sprite is it? A post with... Oh, okay, this is what we insert. Okay. That is the wrong map. Or it's actually the correct map, but it's pulling it from this global map. Tile ID 1 is... Before we deleted this and exported it, if we go ahead, yeah, if we go ahead and export this as a global map, it should overwrite, and then if we do a tile ID of 1, it should give us that transparent 75, and then it would actually render a gray background because that's what we set the background color to be, but it should have technically transparent tiles here. So we would change this transparent layer to, or we would change the background color to be a dark black or something, and then we would have to add for each layer we're exporting, we'd have to say, hey, if the tile ID is 0, meaning we didn't draw anything on that tiled layer, if that tile is undrawn, then we're going to assign it to be this default transparent character so that we don't crash when we try to render a tile ID of 0. But tile ID would get set to 1 to be a transparent tile. And then by the time we're inserting, once we're done inserting the ground and then the collidable map object layer and then the top level tile layer, hopefully none of the tile IDs in any given scene would be equal to 1, because hopefully every tile is assigned to one of those values. Either it's ground or a collidable map object or a top level tile ID. So we could do that to get around this issue. I think in development it does make it a little awkward to like one thing it does well, yeah, it would make it so that we have to be very conscious of what layer we're drawing on, and we'd have to go and draw the ground first, and then the collidable map object, and then the top level tiles. But then we would get rid of this idea of doing collidable map objects based on the tile ID, and we would be freed from putting all our collidable map objects in the same row. And that would give us the ability to move basically all our tiles a little bit closer so that they're not all spread out, and we can kind of just draw them. But yeah, I'm not super seeing a downside to doing this method, Sasquatch. I'm thinking this is a good idea. Ideally, we'd be able to update our insert animations to be based off this tile ID as well. And we would have just some enums of known starter tile IDs for animations, and we'd say, hey, if you're a tile ID of 333, we know that you are a water, and therefore we would insert the appropriate water animation into that tile grid. And what that is just, I think if we look in our map declarations, we've got right here, an animatable. So we would say, hey, if your tile ID is equal to one of these enums that we know is a animatable starting frame, then go ahead and insert the proper frame for that enum at the given row and column of whatever at whatever index we're in the middle of inserting. So we would say, like here, like this map, this data downloader is keeping track of which scene row and scene column we're in. So then we would say not only insert a map here for the tile ID, but that would give us the starting tile ID, and we can say, hey, if our tile ID is equal to whatever enum for like flower anim starter, something like that. We'd say if my tile ID is equal to the flower anim starter, then we would want to go ahead and insert, just like how we're doing this. We would insert this, and we would say like, hey, if your tile ID is equal to that starter animation, then also insert into the animation table at that map row and at that map column into the animatables function and insert anim for the flower specifically. So we would have one of these for a flower anim and for a autumn flower anim, and this 7 and 8 would turn into the scene row and scene column instead of this 7 and 8. So therefore, we wouldn't have to manually we would be able to say scene row and scene call and insert that function into the given animatable table for the map and pass it the appropriate row and column for the scene. And what that gives us is a function inside the current scene, and we are updating the flowers, and this flowers is an anim spitter object, and the anim spitter object has a reference to the current frame. So we're updating the anim spitter object over delta time, and that's cycling from tile 1024 to 1025 to 1026 and then back to 1024 and 1025. So as long as we insert this anim spitter into the correct scene row and scene call, we're already executing all the animatable functions if they exist in our scene. So in our scene, we're saying, hey, for every animatable in our animatables table for the current map we're on, go ahead and just run all those functions so that they update over time. And that actually inserts the tile ID at the given row. So this flowers.frame would be whatever current frame of flowers we're on, and the scene row and scene call are references to the scene view's current map dot row and dot call. So it would insert that tile ID and overwrite what we initially draw. So we would initially draw it with the first animatable. It would go through. We could, and this isn't perfectly. I don't know. This isn't perfectly working just yet because we don't have this flower anim number. But let's try it. Let's see if we can't get the anims working for the default starting frame here. So let's comment out our animatables for the map we start at. And then what we'll do is we will forget that we are reassigning our tile ID to the transparent tile placeholder. And then we won't do this just yet, but we will see what the result of taking our insert anims out. So let's see, we should just have still images for any animatable. So our flowers are not moving, our water's not moving. So now if we go, I would want to do something like this where we say, hey, if the tile ID is this flower anim. So let me do something here. I want to try to run this script. I want to try to run this Python script to go generate a new tiled PNG. So we do have this drawNums Python script that takes in an object. I mean, I'll just show you. It's a nope. I want to just see the code for this. You know what? We'll just do it in Vim. Okay. So if we go into our graphics, we have a Python what is it called? drawNums.py. So it's using the Python imaging library. We set a default tiles wide and high and a tile size. Okay, so it takes in the master sheet. That's our main export there for our tile sheet, and then it loops through and it just puts a counter onto each image, and it saves it as a tilesNumber.png. So if we run this with Python, we can say Python 3 and we run our drawNums.py. Okay, I think it ran. Then if we upload or if we look at the tiles numbered PNG now it has all the new IDs. So look, this was the old one. We just ran the script and it gave us all the new tile IDs for the new sprite sheet we just added. So this is how we're gonna get this enum for the starter animation, right? So we know water is a 102. So we can say our anim spitter knows that water starts at 102 actually already, so maybe we can just pull it from there. But we would also have, I'm trying to think, now that we're doing this layers and stuff, the fact that these water animatables are in the collidable map objects. Oh, see, this is weird. Because yeah, we can't quite. Okay, yeah, so this tiled method gets a little mushy when we're talking about inserting animations. Because right now, the animations all it's doing is inserting this tile ID over a certain amount of time. So if water starts there, this insert anim function we were doing just cycles through, puts in the water frame over time. And that stopped us from being able to walk through water when it was animating, and if it wasn't animating too, because it was in this collidable map object range. But it gets messy if we try to split up into different layers and say, hey, there's a ground tile and then there's a collidable map objects tile, because the collidable map objects tile, you know, we might be able to say, just put the first frame of water where the animated water is gonna be. And then since on init, yeah, okay, this can work. On init, once we go through the data downloader, once we're on the second layer for our collidable map objects, it would say, hey, 102 is drawn on the collidable map object layer, so therefore insert a collidable map object at that given grid. That would make it so that you can't walk through that scene, through that tile, at that, no matter what tile ID changes over time, because we're not removing collidable map objects over time. That might be something we add a little later. I'm thinking of, like, if you imagine like a pathway and some lava is falling through, and there's like a pattern to how often the lava's covering the floor. At certain times you'd be able to walk through it, but at certain times if lava's there, it would hurt you instead and do some different collision. But in a case like that, it wouldn't be the map tile IDs. That would be its own kind of entity, like a lava entity that flows out, and we have separate collision for that anyway. So I think this method still can work. Let's see. So now we've got a 102 starting point, right, for our enum. If we go, I think in my constants, this is where I keep my enums for stuff. So I could say like, hey, we've got like an animated tiles starters. Starter frames. And we would say, you know, flower anim starter gets this, I already forgot the number, 102. And I want to say, let me see if we got a 102 already. No, we don't. There is a point in time where we're saying, it's in our insert anim, I think. Insert anim has these things. These, where are we declaring these? Like flowers. Yeah, where are we declaring this? Right here. Where is this? My highlighting is all off. Okay, in our map declarations, we do give an anim spitter range for the flower. So, oh yeah, we were doing the water. So look, here's there's the 102 from the water. So we could say, hey, water is the flower, water anim starter sprite location, and then give another of the end location. Okay, let's keep going. I don't know why my color is off. I wonder if there's a way to just refresh my color scheme. Maybe it's, I've got a, okay, maybe not. Yeah, let's keep going. I think we can do, there we go. Still colored wrong. Okay, so we're not inserting our transparent tile. We are putting the tile from this first global map. Right now, we're not worrying about the second layer of collidable map objects, but what we are trying to do is insert the animation here based on if the tile ID is equal to the flower anim starter. And if the tile ID is that first frame of, and it's not flower, it is water. So we'll make sure in our constants, we'll have our, this 102 was the water anim starter. And then we need, if the tile ID is that first frame, then at that given row in our animatables table, we're inserting a function. We're not invoking it, we're just saving it for later. And the function is this insert anim that takes in a given scene row and a scene call, as well as an anim spitter object. And in our case, it's water. And we declare it up here, right there in anim spitter object, starting at 102, ending at 105, and a speed of 0.5. That's the function we're inserting into our animatables table. So now, if we run this, map declarations 59, maybe that's why the coloring is off. Yeah. Right there. Okay. Okay, map declarations, bad argument to insert, table expected. Right there on 57. Bad argument number 1. Okay, we don't have... Oh. Okay, this is really tricky. This is really tricky because we aren't actually keeping track of which row we're on for the scene. Because, oh my gosh, yeah, this is actually really tricky. I think we can... What's up, Magnetonics? How's it going, dude? I think the way we can do this is like right here, we're keeping track. You know, we initiate our scene row and our scene call. Well, why is it saying insert table expected for insert into the table, map call? Oh, this animatables isn't defined till here, so we might have to declare it sooner. So let's give us the table in the animatables before we try to do this. Let's see. Okay, so it doesn't look like we're not updating those animatables. Because the scene row is jacked. If we gave... Yeah, I'm wondering if we put... This is a little tricky. Because the way this was working was we just manually inserted it here at the correct grid. But we don't have access in our data downloader, we don't have access to the scene row and the scene column because we're just appending each value. All we're doing is a table.insert and we're not doing an insert at... Yeah, shit. So like if we think about the map is a 10 by 9 tile sheet, but they don't actually have rows and columns. They're literally just a tile of 90 or 10 times 9. So 10 wide, 9 down. All the scene is 90 tile IDs just back to back to back. It's just 90 of them. It's not, hey, 1-1 is this tile ID, 1-2 is this ID. We do cycle through and put them at the index like that in the render, but the data structure itself doesn't have any reference to which map row or column it is. So it is tough to insert an animatable function. I guess what we could do is we could count the current number of tile IDs in the current scene and factor the scene row and scene column based on what number it is. So if we only have 4 tile IDs, we've inserted 1, 2, 3, 4. If we've inserted 4, we know it's a row 1, 4. But if it's, we'd have to divide, I guess. Yeah, that gets tricky. Yeah, because we don't have access to... Let me see if we manually insert, we took out our water right here, but if we were to insert at this 5.2 and hard code it like this, just to see if the functions are updating. Yeah, they're not even updating here, so we'd have to do something, either this water tile anim starter isn't coded correctly, or we have to do something different with water anim starter 102. Yeah. Okay. It gets really messy because this loop we're in is in a 9,000 tile loop. So we're going through all the tile IDs that tiled exports. Okay, sweet, Magnetonics, yeah. I'm curious about what your process is for coming up with stuff like that. Yeah, dude, it's gross. And if we're talking about doing 3 different layers, one of the ground, one of the collidable map objects, and one of the top level tile IDs, that's 3 9,000 tile loops. The good news is it only runs on init and not on the map init, which is like or the scene init. So that's good. It doesn't run more than once, but it does have to run at least once. Yeah, the issue here is that we're not even I'm gonna just forget about the tile ID and just see if I can put the function of an insert water into the 5.2 frame, and let's see if that shows up. It does. Okay, so something with our and if we if we do it this way, we got a water in the same spot on every scene. So like we only want to say, hey, cycle through the tile IDs. If the tile ID is the starter ID of this water, then insert that animation object. This is weird. This one, oh no, that makes sense. Yeah, because that's the old method we were doing. Okay. So something's wrong with if tile ID is equal to the water anim starter, which is what, 102? Just brainstorming. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Wider range of melee attack patterns. Okay, cool, dude. I want to shout out Magnetonics real quick here. He's also a game developer. He's doing a little fighting game. And you're in Godot, is that right, Magnetonics? Did I do that right? I think I messed up the shout out, dude. I'm sorry. Shoot. Am I screwing that up? How do I do a shout out with a command like that? Yeah, 102 is the starter. Okay, if tile ID is equal to 102, shoot, that's a bummer, dude. Well, I gave you a shout out in spirit. I know there's a way to do it. I think I just misspelled Magnetonics. There we go. I got to do the @ There we go. Yeah, everyone check out Magnetonic's channel too. He does some game dev stuff too. He's a friend of the stream. Okay, so let's just see if a tile ID of 102 to insert that map animation, that's still not working. So we're messing up somewhere in here. Now, the tile ID, this is part of, oh shit, it makes sense. It makes sense, because you know what? It makes sense that this would be messing up, because if we were to go all the way up here into scene 1-1, this is 5-2. If we were to go up to 1-1, I bet we would see the water animation in there. There it is. And this is part of the same issue. The tiled will only export these sweeping 9,000 tile tables, all of it. No. Oh, great. Shit. We just crashed on Twitch. Shoot. What a bummer, man. What time is it? It's 8. Oh, don't give me this. Don't give me this. Sorry, YouTube. Trying to reconnect for Twitch here. Oh, fuck. I've got very little faith that this isn't going to start crashing every 3 minutes now. Sorry about that. Hey, thank you for... What is this? Oh, we just loaded our follower goal. Heck yeah. We hit 100 followers today. That is awesome. You know, that was my last goal I had in mind for follower count, so I'm gonna just take that out, and I'm just gonna maybe make chat a bit bigger, I guess. Cool. Hey, thanks everyone who's following. That's really cool. We hit 100. I've had a great first couple months streaming here on Twitch, and I really like it. So thanks everyone for making it an awesome community. And let's hope we don't crash. But yeah. So we need access to the correct row and index. See, this is jacked up. Now what we could do, oh my gosh, it's really complicated what we have to do. Since we're given a list of 9,000 tile IDs to keep track of which grid, or which scene, row, and column we're currently on for each scene, it gets messy. So we've got here where we're saying, oh my gosh, yeah, this was tough to figure out. But basically we would need to keep reference to like a local row and column reference. And I thought we were doing that. We do it scene call 1. Map call 1. Okay, yeah. Yeah, we're not keeping track of which grid we're currently at in the given frame. So I'm gonna have to do some thinking here about how we can keep reference to. Gosh, it's hard to explain too, because it's a table of 9,000 items, right? And as we insert them in, we need to keep reference to which row we're currently on, but that we cycle through all 100 scenes a different, like a column or a row amount of times. So we cycle through all 100 scenes 10 different times, and every time we would need to reset this local row and column counter so that we have access to not only which row we're on for the current insertion, but the current row and column for it. So it's totally possible. It's just that, like with my naming convention and how we pulled off this first data downloader, It's just kind of a mess for me to think about right now. I think this is the right track, though. I think this is a good idea, because we'd be able to take out anytime we have to manually insert the animatables here. So what this would do, we'd have to pick. Like, a flower isn't a collidable map object, so we would draw the starter flower on the ground level of our tiled ID export, or our tiled export. And tiled is the program here that allows us to draw it. So we would have a ground to tiles. Yeah. We'd have a ground tiles. And then we would have a collidable tiles. And then a top level tiles. So if we were inserting a flower, we have the starter flower ID drawn on the ground level, because you can walk over that animatable, but you can't walk over the water animatable. Yeah, I'm trying to think if this is what I want long term, and I think, and there's no one way to do it, right? But this would make it so that when we're drawing here, we have to be very aware of which layer we're on, so that we're in the correct layer drawing, because that could get messy quick. Because, for example, yeah, we would do... Okay, I think this makes sense. Because if we get this working, then we wouldn't have to keep our collidable map objects in any given row in our tile sheet. We would just have to put it on a specific layer, and then that means any square, any sprite could technically become a collidable tile ID by as simply drawing it on the collidable tile layer. So I think I do like that. It does turn our data downloader into a 27,000 tile writing instead of 9,000. Yeah, so maybe that's something to consider. I mean, it's for a computer. I'm trying to think of, like, what if we were to just run this, like right now, if we run the game, it runs, it takes like a second to load, whatever. I'm curious if we triple this 9,000 loop, and we just say for I gets 1, for as long as 3 things do this map data downloader. So let's try to do this 3 times instead of 1 time, and see if that really affects the loading speed. Okay, well, we can't do it. Why not index a nil value on map declarations? Oh. Well, why is it map declaration 62? Oh, this is part of it. Okay. Okay, no, why would that not work? Oh, because we don't reset our map row or map column anytime. Okay, so maybe instead of a loop... No, yeah, we don't set... Oh, we do set it here. Okay, well, I don't know. I guess doing it, well, now we're just totally broke. What's going on? What did we screw up here? Okay. Let me try this one more time because I think I deleted something on accident. This is what we're trying to loop 3 times. So we'll make a little for loop. And we'll paste in that logic. Okay. So running that 27,000 times as opposed to 9,000 doesn't have a noticeable impact on the loading. So that's not a big deal, I think. You know, that's one of the good things about keeping everything so tiny for Game Boy resolution. Like it's only loading a very small amount of tiles any given scene, but it has to do a lot of this work up front to load all of the sprites into the maps in the first place. It doesn't render them right away, but it assigns all the tile IDs to each map every single time we start the game. So, okay, I think this can work. Let me, in our notes here, I'm gonna say, you know, dude, just doing stenciling for the log cabin has turned into rehauling our whole data downloader and tiled process. But it could help us accomplish inserting animations automatically just based on the tile ID we draw. So we just, you know, on whatever layer we draw the starting tile animation, and then it'll insert the animation in that given scene. That would be nice. And then it would also allow us to have collidables of any sprite type and not be tethered to a certain tile ID range, which is nice. And it also allows us to have a list of top level tile IDs that we can render after the player to give us that 3D illusion. So it's a lot to think about, but it gives us a lot of functionality, and it isn't harder to pull off. We just have to make sure if tile ID is 0, we assign it to a specific transparent tile so that we don't crash on indexing in a wrong tile ID. But yeah, we will do, I want to rehaul downloader to also keep track of local row and column. And then I'll say insert animations. I would say insert anim functions. Insert anim functions based on tile ID and local row and column. Yeah. So that's going to be, it should be fairly simple. It's just that the naming gets really confusing. Like I had to draw a whole diagram to get that data downloader working. And it's, you know, not the best model, but I think all this would entail is adding maybe 1 or 2 more variables to keep track of, make sure we're resetting them at the correct spots, and then we'll have access to the current row and map that we're inserting the tile ID at, and then we'll be able to insert those anim functions as we pull in and populate the tile IDs for each scene. Then we'd have to add not only adding the tile IDs for this ground level, but then to also overwrite any tile that isn't a transparent value with the next layer. So it's like the first layer, the ground layer, put in all the transparent values and all the non-transparent ground tile IDs. Second layer will be all the collidable map objects and the transparent ID, like ignore any transparent IDs, or actually ignore any zero IDs, and only overwrite the previous transparent ID with the collidable map ID, as long as it's not a zero on that second layer. Then on the third layer, overwrite any transparent ID with any non-zero ID for the third layer. So we're still only ending up with one scene object in every map with 90 tile IDs. So it's still going to be that. No, you're good, Sasquatch. This is a good detour. And there's different ways of doing it. We don't have to do it like this, but I am kind of tempted, because thinking about if we want these top level tile IDs, if we have a cave entrance or we have a dungeon entrance or we have anything that needs to be rendered over the player, with my current method, we could do something like I'm currently doing, which is just putting the tile ID in a certain range. And I don't think it's too much more effort to add this into our data downloader. Yeah, the only thing I think that I might be kicking myself over is drawing on the wrong layer. When we're in here, we'd have to make sure we're on the right layer. So that's the only thing I think there's a issue, because at the end of the day, as long as we drew everything on the right layer, all we have to do is do a file export as global map, and then our data downloader will do all the hard work, and it'll insert all the ground level tiles, all the collidable map tiles and objects, and then all the animations as well. As long as we draw the collidables on the collidable layer, and as long as we program the enums for the starter animation tile IDs, yeah, I think it's a good detour. I think it's a good detour, dude. So yeah, good idea. Because it would be kind of nice to free up all this space to be whatever tile we want, and then to also have the ability to make any one tile a collidable if we want it to be, depending on different things. I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example of something we might do that with. I don't have an idea just yet. Or like if we want to add the ability to walk or to swim in water, then at some point we can render the same water tile not as a collidable object. So we wouldn't have to duplicate our sprite in that sense. We could still have the same tile be a collidable map object as well as a normal swimmable water. So there is some utilization we can do on that front. So I do think it's a good idea, Sasquatch. I think that is a good idea. I don't think it'll be too, famous last words, I don't think it'll be too hard to implement, but I'm an hour and a half in and I am not about to be able to pull that off right now. But we're at a good mental stopping point, I think, for this. And I've got a lot to think about for how to implement this. And maybe we'll do this next episode. I do have a full day of work tomorrow with travel, so I don't know if I'll have the juice to do this data downloader stuff tomorrow, but maybe we'll do some sprites tomorrow. So the data downloader needs to insert tile IDs. It needs to insert collidable map objects. And it needs to insert animations insert anims. So I think it'll be easy. I mean, it won't be that easy to conceptualize the code, but it'll be simple, not easy. If that makes sense. But yeah. So we'll continue doing this. I think next episode will probably be some sprite design because I'll probably be fried from work all day and I'm traveling up to Santa Fe. So we'll do new sprites for tomorrow, probably. I mean, I could be feeling amazing. Who knows? But yeah, let's take a look at our git diff. Oh, and you know what? We do have global maps that we don't want to commit, so I'll just delete those right now. And then we'll check our... Oops. Great, I just killed our tmux. That's okay. Oh, yeah, we jacked up. Okay, before we export this, we'll make sure we only have one tile ID, one layer ID in our tiled export for our global map. Because I don't want to draw this just yet. Or maybe if I turn this off, will it export just one layer? Let's see. Export as a global map. And we'll pull up that global map. It does not. Okay. So we will just delete these for now. And I'll put the posts back on the frame one here. That's why I always tend to check my git diff before I commit, because the stuff I forget about always sneaks in there. Okay, so we've got that new tile. I don't know why that changed, but maybe we changed one thing. Oh, yeah, we won't. I think what we'll do is we'll turn back on our, well, no, we'll leave our insert anim. No, let's just turn it back on. We'll turn it back on so we have water working. So we'll do in our map declarations, we'll just get our water back. Yeah, so we'll just get our water back, make sure it loads before we commit, and then we do have our water back. We are, you know, we're leaving our door gone for now because we're working on that stenciling, so I think that's okay. Just kill some geckos, cleanse some geckos for some good measure here. Cool. Okay. We'll say we are starting to rehaul data downloader for multiple layers, as well as we didn't do much other than that, honestly. I mean, I don't know if I want to be committing the tiles numbered into my Git repo, but I guess it's okay. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. I should probably add some Git cabin stenciling or something, but we'll call it there. So yeah, I've got a good mental model for how we're going to tackle this next part, and I think in the long run it's going to be good, because that'll solve our manual insertion of animatables, and it will give us more flexibility in rendering collidable objects and stuff. But yeah, let's see if we've got any homies to raid here. Valenier, who runs the indie game dev team, is streaming. I'm going to make sure he's working on some game dev stuff, and then I might raid over there.
It took a village to take you down.
Yeah, he's working on some voiceover work for his game, so we'll give him a raid and we'll call it a night. But thanks for everyone for watching. Hope you all have a good night, and I'll be here tomorrow for some more game dev stuff. Yeah, thanks for the 100 followers, everyone. That's a big milestone here on Twitch, so I appreciate that. Thank you. So yeah, I'll catch y'all later.